Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Board of Education regular board meeting of April 18th, Tuesday, 2023. Mr. Trujillo, are there any public requests to speak? Hearing none, we will now adjourn to closed session. Thank you. Thank you so much for your patience as we had to finish our closed session. So I'd like to call us back to order, and now we'll have language access.
Thank you very much. We have Spanish interpretation available through Zoom and in person. Muy buenas noches. Tenemos interpretación al español disponible por medio de Zoom y también aquí en persona. And we also have ASL interpretation available through Zoom. If you would like to see the ASL interpretation, you can click on the globe icon that says interpretation, select ASL, and you will be able to see the ASL interpreters spotlighted on your screen. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent Maldonado will please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand and face the flag. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to go to the student board member. Do you want to bring in you're going to have them? Yes, let's go there first.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone, board members, members of the public. I'd like to start by, as we always do, with our arts presentation. I'm proud to present the Franklin Academia del Folclórico. Franklin Elementary believes in creating opportunities based on what students want and student choice. Their decisions, instruction, and structures are centered around the student. The Franklin Folclórico Academy, or Franklin Academia del Folclórico, is created to meet the needs of the student with the intention to start practicing their craft and skill of instrumental music, visual art, sport teams, and folklorico dance prior to entering junior and senior high school. The Franklin Music and Dance Academies is a new initiative to provide deeper and culturally relevant visual and performing arts opportunities during the school day for the Franklin student body in grades 4 through 6 under the direction of teaching artist Marisol Cabrera in the back. Franklin students will be performing Mexican folklorico dances from the states of Jalisco. Of course, I'm not going to be biased as that is where my family is from, and Veracruz. Thank you, and join me in welcoming them. Thank you so much, and I want to acknowledge our assistant principal, Xochitl Tafoya. Also, thank you, Ms. Tafoya, for bringing the students tonight. Board members, I have to say that the experience of your roots and culture and what we're brought up with, it reminds me of how it speaks to the soul. So it doesn't matter how many times I hear that song, it will always evoke a set of emotions. So I hope that every child in our school district has experiences that speak to their home life and to their experiences, and that they feel valued and included in that way. So that's our wish for joyful learning environments, President Sims Moulton,
Absolutely.
that evoke those for our students. Would you like me to turn back to student board member and then finish my report?
Yes, actually, I need to make the announcement from closed session as well,
Okay.
so we'll go back in order. So that was a great way to open up, what a spirited way to open up. We should always open up with the joy of our children in front of us. So thank you again. Oh, they're already gone, but thank you. Okay, so there's an announcement of closed session. In closed session, the board approved the appointment of Daisy Ochoa as principal of McKinley Elementary. Vote was 4-0 with Virginia Alvarez not present. So thank you. So congratulations, Ms. Ochoa. See her next week. And now we'll move to the student board member report.
Okay, thank you all so much. Good evening, everyone. It was so nice to start off with such a fun-spirited and energetic performance. You could really see all the smiles on everyone's face, and it was so sweet to see everyone enjoying the performance and enjoying the beautiful art of dance. I don't have much to report on my end. We have our Student Advisory Council meeting tomorrow at La Cuesta, and we're really excited to discuss school safety and school climate at that meeting. It's going to be very productive, I can already tell. And then just acknowledging that for the past few weeks, a lot of students have been doing CASP state testing, in which students are tested on math and English, and juniors in high school are tested on science as well. So just huge congratulations and a huge thank you to all the students that are trying their best and pushing through. I know it's not easy, and I know it's not ideal to be testing for days on end, but it really does make a difference, and we're very appreciative for each and every one of you, and remember to take care of yourselves, of course, as usual. And then, of course, we have a few different months that we're celebrating in April. April is Autism Acceptance Month, and it is also Bilingual Multilingual Advocacy Month, Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and Arab American Heritage Month as well. So a very, very full month of celebrations, of acknowledgments, and of progress that I'm hoping to make. So there are resources available. If you would like to educate yourselves more, you can visit the Culturally Responsive Curriculum SB Unified website. So thank you all so much, and that's my report.
Thank you, Ms. Suresh. Now we'll move to the superintendent's report.
Okay, back to the superintendent's report. I do want to acknowledge that this Saturday I had a chance to, for the first time, attend the tryouts for the Fiesta Spirit Award and the Junior Spirit coming up, and I was very pleased to see so many students from Santa Barbara Unified part of those auditions. And I want to congratulate Olivia Nelson, a fourth grader at Roosevelt Elementary, who was selected as the Junior Spirit of Fiesta, and Jack Harwood, a former student at Dos Pueblos, currently a Santa Barbara City College student, who was selected as the first male Spirit of Fiesta representative. And I'm pleased to say that I met Jack my first year here, who actually performed with us across the street where his mother works as the leader for the Historical Museum. So congratulations to those students. There were other finalists during those editions: Chloe Cosen from San Marcos, Isabella Ritchie from Dos Pueblos, E. Flores from San Marcos, Noel Tink Gerthofer from San Marcos, Jamie Lynn Rodriguez from Dos Pueblos, Sara Nereto from Dos Pueblos, Mia Talagon from Santa Barbara High for the Spirit recognition. And under Junior Spirit, there were two additional students from Roosevelt, Alina Soriano and Sarah Garcia, and I must say they were all so incredibly talented, and I was very pleased to see that while we are not part of Fiesta officially, that so many of our students are finalists for that program. I know it's a big event here in town in our community. I also want to share with you a couple of videos while we queue them up. As you know, we've been working on an IU We campaign IU we stand for as part of our respectful treatment policy. And one of the things we've asked schools and people across our district to do is to send us their video and tell us what they stand for. So we have received 2 videos from Santa Barbara High School, which we'll show in a minute. I also want everyone to know that we're asking people throughout the district what they stand for by filling out paper slips. If you get a chance to walk out through the courtyard, you'll see that we are hanging up the IU We Stand For statements as in our tree as part of that campaign. So with that, I'm going to have the team show the videos.
I stand for people with Down syndrome.
I stand with people with Cornelia de Lange syndrome.
I stand for Black people, undocumented people, and indigenous people.
I stand with people with disabilities and women everywhere.
I stand for non-native English speakers.
I stand with people of color.
I stand for neurodiverse people and people with mental illness.
I stand with women of color.
I stand with autistic people.
I stand with women everywhere.
We have one more? That was the one? Oh, sorry about that. I thought there was 2 videos. So I want to thank the teachers and the staff at Santa Barbara High School for putting together this video with our students. And every one of us could stand for something, and I so appreciate them. I do want to also announce that we are encouraging students to register to vote this week at Santa Barbara Unified. We want to encourage our students to become lifelong voters and active citizens. It is High School Voter Education Week. Online pre-registration is now available for eligible 16 and 17 years. Let me start again. Online pre-registration is now available for eligible 16 and 17-year-olds at registertovote.ca.gov. California youth who pre-register to vote will have registration become active once they turn 18 years old. We will be sending that out in our weekly newsletter to families as well. And with that, we're going to end with Heroes of the Heart. As you know, I always end my presentations with this, and we'll get that going. The first nominee is Michelle Cordero. She is at Harding University Partnership School. The nomination was made by Karen Reyes. She's the glue that holds the school together, always the first smile you see walking onto campus, the person everyone goes to get help and get things done. I know when I became a principal, they told me your boss is the office manager. And I know that Michelle is an excellent one over at Harding. At San Marcos High School, the nomination of Rosalba Gonzalez Hill, nominated by Ileana. She is a kind person with a huge passion for helping young people and parents. She knows our needs. She's an angel for our students and families. Thanks to her, many were able to visit universities. And I know I sent the board a note last week about Un Dia a la Vez event at San Marcos High School for our newcomers, which she helped to organize. Next, Kate Lambert from Santa Barbara High School, nominated by Steve. Ms. Lambert is invaluable in providing suggestions and feedback to me to help make a very hard subject, physics, accessible to all students. I should go to her class. That sounds incredible. Next, at Santa Barbara High School Special Ed Department, nominated by Travis. This group does an amazing job for their students. Their bond and camaraderie is amazing. This love and support they have for each other and the work they do oozes over to their students, and you saw some of the fruits of their labor today. Thank you, Special Education Department at Santa Barbara High. At McKinley, Anali Gaxiola, nominated by Jessica Flores. Did I skip one? Sorry, let me go back. Joe from Dos Pueblos High School, nominated by Olivia. Joe works with some of the toughest kids on our campus, and he does so every day with kindness, compassion, and a genuine caring spirit for them and their needs. Next, we have Anali Gaxiola from McKinley. She has gone above and beyond to make my child feel so comfortable and included in the classroom that he considers her class his second home. He is 5 and hates missing class because he feels as if he is needed as if he is needed in his class, nominated by Jessica Flores. Thank you, Annalie. Carmen Grande, also at McKinley. Ms. Grande has done an excellent job at getting our third graders excited to be on campus again and being excited to learn. Dylan Walker, and Dylan is not here, but he's been at our meetings before helping us, nominated by Janet Hollister. I want to express gratitude for all of Dylan's hard work to make sure that the behind-the-scenes tech platforms were all up and working before school started. Thank you, Dylan. Lauren Gleason at Alta Vista, nominated by Joanna Hill. Ms. Gleason made personalized lesson plans, connected us to resources, and encouraged my son so far above and beyond her job description. Honestly, I do not know what I would have done without her assistance these past few years. Gina Cuevas from Food Services, nominated by Marta Minerva Valdez, one of our food service managers. The way she interacts with parents when they have a question is very professional, respectful, and polite. Her customer service is impeccable. And Santa Barbara High School nominated their para-educators by Aura Moon. As a substitute teacher, I see the work, patience, kindness, smiles, and empathy as they work with our high school kids. We all owe a gratitude to these unsung heroes who keep kids on track, thriving, and happy. And you can see all their names here as well. And last, we have Brianna Garcia from Roosevelt, nominated by Valerie Galindo, our principal. Brianna truly exemplifies the Roosevelt spirit each and every day, going above and beyond in all that she does. She loves our students, staff, and families. Her quick wit and kind smile make our school a better place. And that concludes my superintendent report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Maldonado. Next, we'll move to board comments and correspondence. Board members, any comments and correspondence?
Thank you, President Sims Moten. Just wanted to say thank you to the performers from Franklin today. That was so fun, and I agree with Kavya. Everyone had a smile on their face. It was amazing. Not too many updates since last week. We canceled a housing ad hoc committee meeting on Friday, but we have our next scheduled meeting tomorrow. Outside of that, on Saturday, so the 15th, as part of my job, I was a part of UCSB's open house, and it was amazing to see all the prospective students, including from our school district. I got to say hi to a couple, so it was really nice. And then I'll follow up with Kavya's comment about this being Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Next Wednesday on the 26th is Denim Day, so make sure to wear your denim on Wednesday, April 26th. And outside of that, that is my report.
Mr. Banning?
I, too, have nothing new to report other than to say that recently we've been hearing some things about upcoming events at the end of the school year, and I just wanted to say thank you to the staff that has coordinated and created an amazing shared calendar that we can take a look at and see who's going to what places and make sure that the board is well represented and not overrepresented. And it's really a great tool. I want to say thank you for that.
Ms. Munoz? Thank you, Mr. Banning.
Yes, appreciation for the Franklin students that came to perform for us. Connection with the teacher. She had taught my girls and actually in my family folklorico way back, and their family, the Cabrera family is just amazing what they've done in this community, as well as connection with Xochitl Tafoya, who her mom taught Montessori school to many of our children in English and Spanish way back, including my daughter who's now 30. So it's great to see them, performing, and I could just see their self-esteem and the joy that they gave, and Arriba Jalisco. And I also was, as I blush, as honored to be at the VADA groundbreaking event. I was able to meet students and a parent who's on the board with her, has twin daughters, and talk to students. Several of the students, one wants to be in animation, another student wants to be an architect. We had a student speaker who can teach others, including myself, how to speak in public. And he had his points down and everything, and even wrapped up his little speech and such. We also got to go home with a gift from the students, this beautiful wooden shovel with, which is a work of art, which I hung on the wall to remind us of when we're going to come in and visit the building when it's completed. And I think that's all. And thank you for reminding us about, Denim Day and the community spirit. Also on the weekend of April 29th, just a reminder that it's going to be Santa Barbara Earth Day. We are going to have an event, a kids' corner, where we're going to read, myself, I was going to read from a children's book that is in English and Spanish, and we have 300 books to give away.
Okay, thank you, board members. I'll just conclude with a few comments. First of all, I want to say to the students that are testing, thank you for staying committed to that. Know how hard that is, and thank you for the teachers. Thank you for the snacks. I know that's important to have while you're doing that, so those who are supporting them with the snacks. So stay there, keep your heads in the books, and thank you for your commitment to doing your best. I also wanted to just echo the Vado groundbreaking that we were able to attend. That was the second groundbreaking I was able to attend on Santa Barbara Unified, and it was just such a beautiful spirit. And the student that spoke up, he wrapped up his comments of talking about this has been a dream for quite a while, and he said now we get to realize your dream by walking through this door. So it really was very apropos, if you will, and how he realized that this dream has been wild, but they get to benefit from someone else's dream. And so I just appreciated his comments from that. And also, I had the opportunity, along with Dr. Maldonado and some very excited sixth graders, I believe they're sixth graders from Franklin, to celebrate Quantum Day at the Google site out in Goleta. And so they were able to go in and tour the site and have lots of fun. There's lots of things going on over in that campus. And so Google is certainly here as a good partner and one to partner with and support students in schools. And they actually donated $50,000 through our Santa Barbara Education Foundation to the Teachers Grant Fund. So appreciate their generosity with that. And I know Santa Barbara Ed Foundation will be looking at that a little bit further, announcing what they're doing with that. So I just want to appreciate them wanting to be a good neighbor and a good collaborator with the school districts here in Santa Barbara County. So I just want to just appreciate that. That was also along with Supervisor Capps and Dr. Paz, Executive Director from Santa Barbara Education Foundation. So I appreciate that. And again, I just want to reiterate just the joy in having the kids come in, open up for us, and start our meeting always with at the forefront of what our thoughts and what we do is our children, and how joyful they are. So appreciated that. So, and I won't be here because we'll be attending the Coast to Coast conference, but we'll be sure to acknowledge the Denim Day where we are. So as I get back on a flight, it'll be much easier. So that makes it easy to be able to do that. I can make an excuse for it. I'm going to extend denim and not be professionally dressed so much, but I'll put a jacket on to make it good. So just want to thank you. And also, we have our legislative committee meeting this week. Will we have that? Our legislative, is it meeting this week? Okay, so that's coming up because there's some things we might want to look up as we go to talk about legislation up there. So, all right, with that concludes our board comments and correspondence. We'll move next to public comments. Mr. Escobedo.
Thank you, President Sims-Moten. We have 3 public commenters. I'll just name them in order. You'll have 3 minutes. I'll give everyone a gentle 30-second reminder. And we'll start with Moni DeWitt, followed by Amy Smith, and we'll close out with Carolina Bate. Welcome.
Here we go. Thank you. So I'll try to be organized here. As you may have noticed, I did give you a very great New York Times latest article, Kids Can't Read, the Revolt That's Taking on the Educational Establishment. And although you may not have seen it and had a chance to read it, but it does go into the Right to Read movement, and I believe many of you here on the board did actually meet Kareem Weaver and understand some of the background of the Right to Read. Now, one of the big things about it is that it requires strong leadership, and I do know, and I'm very grateful that our staff here has picked a Right to Science of Reading program for literacy. But I just want to add that it's harder than just picking out the program. And the people that have been successful in 22 states have also implemented other strategies. And the strategies that they implement are screening, automatic screening, also reducing class sizes, teacher training, and remediation. And now, at the end of the New York Times article, you'll find this lovely woman from Ohio with her daughter. And what she talks about is that this educational movement has come about partially due to the pandemic, and I'll explain it here briefly, but it was because it's targeting literacy gurus, publishers, and everybody to embrace this, because what happened during the pandemic is that many parents saw that their kids weren't reading proficiently. Dyslexic parents already understand this, and also emerging multilinguals have severe problems. And when you look, this bears out in just the report you all saw last week. The ones doing the worst are actually 4,200 are socially economic disadvantaged, the students with differences, and they come up at the lowest all the time. Now, in the end of the article, what's important, this page, Joy and her daughter, who did get help from her district, her daughter is now in the 12th grade, and what they're asking, although they have cooperation, is what are they going to do now that we are in recuperation and damage stage, because we have secondary, and in our district, I've counted it up, we have 6,500 kids who are way below. Those are EMLs, those are with learning difference, and those socioeconomic hardship. They hit it on every study, and I have
30 seconds.
Okay, and so basically what I want is from leadership. I did see your lovely thing in Ed Hat, Superintendent, but I wonder if we could be stronger, because I have people asking me, and I was on the Literacy Task Force, are we embracing the science of reading? Because in this it says we show academic growth when we're not. Some of our students are at 11%, and we just talk about linguistically, culturally responsive programs, but we never mention science of reading. So my question is, are we embracing the science of reading, and can we talk about it? Thanks.
Thank you. Amy Smith, followed by Carolina Bate. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Amy Smith. I homeschooled until last year, and my oldest daughter took the SAT this year at DP, Dos Pueblos High School, and she was very shocked to experience trying to use the restroom. There was one restroom with stalls for both males and females, and I'm sure anybody else, which is very disconcerting for many people who aren't used to that or have traditional beliefs, which includes, we talk about embracing, including our friends and community members from Central and South America, many of whom are Catholic, have traditional values, and other reasons for having traditional values, even if they're not Catholic. And so it's Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and do you think you might be creating an opportunity for sexual assault by asking young men and young women to go into the same restrooms that could be, with no other occupants? A woman could find herself alone in there with a male, and that would be deemed appropriate by the people seeing the male enter. It's very, very disconcerting, and I want to know how this happened, this change took place. Where was the big discussion? I wasn't aware of this discussion. I know a lot of families in this community who are not comfortable with this at all. I know kids report not going to the bathroom all day, trying to need to go to the restroom. I mean, that's already been a problem in the past, sometimes because people feared violence in a restroom in a public high school, but now it's also sexual violence from the other sex. That is an opportunity that's been created. So I really think this needs to be reversed. There's also the issue of, sexual harassment claims that might not be true, which you're setting people up for that possibility as well. I don't believe all women, but I believe every complaint should be investigated and taken seriously, and I think everyone should have due process, but creating an opportunity like you're doing to follow some kind of fad is extremely troubling, and I think we can do better, and I think we need to step back and actually respect parents and families. And if we're going to include, that means traditional people as well, religious people. This country was founded by Christians, Christian society, and yes, there was some difficult things in the history, but we are now include and have rights for all kinds of people, and that's a good thing. But it was founded on Christian values, and by Christians and having a moral framework, that the idea of democracy functioning without a moral people was not considered tenable. And so we really need to look at where we're going and how this kind of a policy can just be imposed when I bet the majority of people do not support it.
Thank you. Carolina Bate. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. Being a member of a school board is a huge responsibility. Hopefully, this public comment will provide helpful insight and perspective. Public education plays a critical role in how young people are raised and become adults. Tragically, just recently, we saw yet another mass public murder shooting, this time in Nashville, Tennessee. 3 9-year-old children were murdered. Their names, Evelyn Deekhouse, Haley Scruggs, and William Kinney. And 3 adults, Mike Hill, the custodian, Catherine Kuntz, the principal, and Cynthia Peak, a substitute teacher, were all murdered. Why does this keep happening? Why do we continue to see this completely disordered and barbaric behavior in our country? Are these incidents the consequences of a culture of death which we have allowed to become part of our society? To the point now where these mass murders are just commonplace. How did we get to this point? We know that each child is born innocent. No child is ever born to grow up and kill someone. We also know that the heart and mind of a child are very delicate and very easily traumatized, and that children and young people are very vulnerable and very suggestible and impressionable. What is influencing their behavior? Are we teaching our children ideas that we should not be teaching them? Are our schools and curriculum suggesting behaviors that are not socially and mentally healthy for them? And as they become adults, these are the consequences? And what are we not teaching them that we should be teaching them? We all need to stop and to think about
30
this.
seconds.
We all need to stop and to think about this incredibly serious issue. How can we reverse the damage? Reversing the damage that has been done over the decades begins by asking questions. What are we doing wrong? And what can we do better? Thank you so much for being willing to consider these perspectives.
Thank you. And that concludes public comment.
Thank you. Now we'll move to consent agenda. Board members, are there any items you'd like to pull for action? Dr. Maldonado?
I know you asked the board members, but I do want to make sure
Okay.
that I note that item E9 under consent agenda, I would like to move to action agenda.
Okay. Board members, any additional items other than this one being pulled by Dr. Maldonado? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve? No one said anything. I think they're getting ready on to approve the action. Come on, Hilda, leave us alone. We got it going over here. Do I have a motion to approve all the consent items minus E9? We have a motion?
So moved.
In a second.
Second.
Okay. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. All right. That moves us right into our action agenda. Superintendent Maldonado, you want to just pull E9 on the front one before we get started on F1?
Yes, if
Okay.
that's okay.
Yes.
And I'm going to ask either Steve or Kim to come and speak to that item, Or is, oh, sorry, Marina. Sorry, Marina, I missed you back there. Thank you.
Good evening, President Sims-Moden, board members, Dr. Maldonado, cabinet members, public. I'm here to ask for the approval of the resolution number 29. The resolution is to request the board to approve the attached leaseback contract documents and to authorize the execution and delivery of the lease of the site to the contractor and the facilities lease for Dos Pueblos High School electrical upgrade project. The project involves replacing existing electrical building system, including new wiring between substation and the buildings, new transformers, and new switchgear. This project will also accomplish reducing the current high voltage of 4,160 volt system to 480 volt system. That's much safer for public schools. Prior to this resolution, the board approved Scott & Sons Electric as the contractor for this project. We had several submissions to our RFQ for this project, and the team selected Scott & Sons. They also had a very successful similar project for San Marcos High School in, I'm not sure what year it was, but it was a few years ago. In accordance with Education Code 17406, the leaseback contract allows the district to lease the site to the contractor for a nominal fee, and as the construction moves forward, the district will be making regular payments on the lease to the contractor for the amount of the completed work, which is commensurate with the completed portions of the project, until the project is over and we'll get our site back. After the approval of this resolution, our next steps will be to approve the guaranteed maximum price that will be provided by the contractor and adopt the construction plans and specifications. That's all I got. Thank you so much, and if you have any questions, please let me know.
Board members, any questions or comments on this item? Okay. May I have thank you, Ms. Marina. May I have approval on E9, moving from the consent agenda to the action agenda? May I have approval?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Second. All in favor say aye.
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 Thank you, Ms. Marina.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll move to F1. Acceptance and appointment of Jennifer Lee's membership application to the Citizen Bond Oversight Committee. Here comes Kim. Okay.
Okay, I'm really excited about this one. This is, we're going to ask for the acceptance and the appointment of Jennifer Lee's membership application to the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. So this is our committee that looks at all of our bond projects. It is an amazing committee, a group of people who are very interested in all the wonderful things that we're doing with our facilities projects that we're working on. We have had a little bit of difficulty in getting people because we've had a little bit of an attrition and some folks have left. And we now have someone who would really like to be on this this committee, so we're very, very excited. I don't know if she's there. Jennifer Lee? Okay. So I would like to introduce Jennifer Lee, who would like to join this group. Just so you know, by the bylaws for this Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, the committee should have at least 7 members, but currently we're down to 4. So we're trying to, hopefully by this tonight, hopefully some people will see this and want to come join us with this as well. So we're required as a district to advertise for folks, and we have been doing that regularly. And Jennifer Lee has applied to be an at-large community member to this group. The CBOC bylaws require that that you as a board officially appoint these members, and they can serve up to 3 consecutive 2-year terms. So welcome, Jennifer Lee. If you would like to just say a few words, that would be great.
Good evening, President and board members. Can you hear me?
You can.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to potentially serve on this board. I didn't really come with anything prepared specifically, but I am very interested. It's adjacent to what I do for a living, which is advising public agencies. And yeah, that's it. That's all I have.
Well, we're very honored that you would like to join our group. It's a very interesting group of people, and we are very excited about all the different projects we're working on. So hopefully this will work. So back to you, board members.
Okay, thank you. I was doing a sidebar there, just trying to agenda management going on here. Actually multitasking with my ears. So I just wanted to thank Ms. Lee for her enthusiasm of being on that committee, and thanking her for volunteering to be a part of that. I appreciate the reports that the committee brings. They're so detailed and energized. I think it's Mr. Frank. Is still Mr. Frank?
Yes,
Mr.
yes.
Frank is still there.
Frank Stevens.
He was very gracious when we first came on. We were just passing some boards when it came out in 2016. So I just appreciate just their diligence in keeping us, in compliance.
Yes.
I appreciate that. Board members, any comments and or questions? Mr.
Just
Bannon?
another voice of thanks.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. With that, can I have a motion for approval?
I move to approve this item.
Okay.
I second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Motion
Welcome
passes.
aboard, Ms. Lee.
Yes, thank you. Okay. We'll move to F2, approval of human resources recommendations. Dr. Becchio, I see you on your way.
Good evening, Board President Sims Moten, board members, Superintendent Maldonado. I bring before you tonight the actions from HR, and the Human Resources recommendation list always represents the actions from HR and asks the board to consider them for approval. I did want to point your attention, as I usually do, to the classified premium pay section. There's just some employees that I wanted to call out publicly and congratulate. Lindsay Buchanan, who's one of our curriculum specialists at Washington, master's degree stipend. She's earned her master's degree. Yvonne Saracedo, Sarah Delgado, Mark Ellel, all curriculum specialists, and all received their bachelor's degree and now will be getting the bachelor's degree stipend. And then Patricia Michaels also is on this list, a para-IBI doctorate degree, so congratulations to her. And I also wanted to point out there are 4 different premium pays. Yvonne Padilla, Elizabeth Salazar, Carolina Moreno and Yvonne Padilla both going to receive a language premium pay. And then Elizabeth Vasquez increasing her premium pay from level 1 to level 2. And then Gabby in my office in HR will be increasing from level 1 to level 2 premium pay. And so I wanted to point those out and congratulate those employees. We are proud of them for that work. And I would like to turn it back over to you, to the board, for any questions you might have.
Board members, any comments and or questions? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second the motion.
Yes. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Thank you. Motion approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have F3, approval of opening of the 30-day window on April 19th, 2023 for the public inspection of proposed recommended health instruction materials for 23-24 school year. Ms. Alvarado? Dr. Sheffield's coming.
Dr. Sheffield will be
Yes.
joining me as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board. On behalf of the secondary education, I am here in Dr. Sheffield to present and request a 30-day window to review materials. I would like to start by sharing, can you start the presentation? Thank you. Next slide. Thank you. I would like to start by sharing or directing your eyes towards the right-hand side of this screen. And on the right-hand side, you will see the California Health Education Standards. Those are the standards by TK-12 for the state of California. On the top of this document in blue and white, you will see the 6 essential contents areas for 7th and 8th grade. Those content areas include nutrition, it includes alcohol and tobacco, also other areas. And I wanted to make sure that we had this information as we move forward, because there might be some questions as to curriculum that we have previously adopted. So the current curriculum is that we use in our schools in junior high is Teen Talk. That was previously adopted in 2020. Once again, if you look at the California standards in the 6 essential content areas in 7th and 8th grade, the comprehensive sexuality education curriculum is a small portion of the entire area that we need to cover in all of our schools in junior high, 7th and 8th. Our current instruction is currently being taught within the physical education classes. It's not a standalone class. We are moving towards that for next year. Minimum of 10 hours over 2 weeks is what we currently have, and it does not cover all health standards. Our main focus has been on the comprehensive sexuality education, which, like I said, it has been previously adopted. Next slide. The Health Curriculum Committee has been formed, and that committee brought forward some potential curricula that we can start looking at. We narrowed it down to 2 curricula. We met with both publishers, but we will bring you more details as to what tools we used, what did we consider before looking further into the curricula. The members of this committee represented all 4 junior highs as well as the district office. It included teachers, assistant principals, principal, as well as Dr. Sheffield and myself through this process. Next slide. Just the highlights of the committee meeting outcomes. So junior high principals voiced the need for a comprehensive health curriculum. The team met to assess the current status of our health education in junior high schools. Team met to review materials available. The team also met with 2 publishers, and the team decided to field test a GW, which is a comprehensive health education curriculum. Next slide. The curriculum we are looking at is GW Comprehensive Health, and each chapter contains skills-based activities. It's standards aligned. It is created by experts. It has up-to-date information and topics. And what we really liked about this curriculum is that as new information comes in, they can easily insert and provide information that has been updated with new terminology or anything else that is happening currently in our world. Also, it's customizable lesson plans, and it provides greater flexibility for our teachers to use. We also currently, and I can provide more details later, we will bring more information, but our special education department also will be included in this process so that they can look at the curricula that supports EMLs and special education students. Next slide. If approved, we are proposing to open the window tomorrow, Wednesday, April 19th, 2023. We would provide the materials at each of our campus so that parents can easily access those materials to review at their campus or here at the district office. The committee will provide a recommendation to the board on Tuesday, May 23rd, and they're currently field testing this curricula. And that concludes our report.
Okay, thank you, board members. Any questions? Come on. Mr. Escobedo.
I just want to say thank you I know this is a big lift, and a lot goes into this, and we're entering the public comment period. One question I had about the public comment period, the curriculum is available at all school sites and at the district office. Is it available online as well?
Yes, I forgot to mention that. It will be available online, and also we will provide a flyer that will have links and QR codes for our parents to access and provide their feedback immediately there at the sites, or if they want to go online. But we will also provide paper-based information for those who don't have access to online documents.
Thank you.
Kavya. Mr. Resch.
Thank you so much for bringing this forward. I just wanted to ask if there are any plans for students to review the curriculum ahead of time or to offer their feedback.
Good question. We are planning to survey our students, so we're currently field testing, so we will be asking the students, because it is not district-wide in every classroom, but we will be utilizing the classrooms in which it's being field tested. So yes, we will definitely do that.
Thank you so much.
Okay, additional questions or comments? Yes, thank you for bringing this forward. I just had a couple questions just for clarity. I'm not sure what slide it was, whether it's going to be a standalone, because it's currently being offered through physical education. So are we separating it out through this process, or?
So the principals are currently working on the format in which they will offer the actual health class. So some are trying to fit it in an elective wheel, so it will be a quarter. And then they will participate in other classes within that quarter. So we're looking at that. We might be interacting it with PE, but it will definitely take more than just 10 hours. We would be interacting and having that throughout the year if they were to include it with their physical education classes. So we're looking at master schedules and definitely trying to make sure we work it in, but it's something that is definitely needed and looking forward to implementing.
Great, thank you, I appreciate that. And then the question I had, with it being open and having for comments, will the board hear those feedback that you received during that open period?
Absolutely. We will bring that forward on that day. There will be a section, a line item on our board agenda for that space.
Okay, great. Any additional comments? Not hearing any? Okay. Can we move approval on? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Oh, I second.
Okay. Been motion and second. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll next go to item F4, case 202223-10. Ms. Munoz.
Okay, board action, sorry, do I read this, Wendy?
Your language is right there on your sheet. There you go. On your sheet, that just there.
I'm sorry, you can just read that word for word.
Yeah, just read your motion there.
Okay, in case number 2022-23-10 for expulsion of the board approves the recommendation of the administrative hearing panel.
Motion and
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Okay, in case 2022-23-14 for expulsion, the board approves the recommendation of the administrative hearing panel.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Sorry, say
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. Okay. That concludes our action items, and typically we take a break, but board, I want to send to you, I know we've been in motion all day, pretty early most of the day. You want to take a 10-minute break and then come back for reports, or you want to push through? Yes, no, what do y'all want to do? We'll take 5. Okay, we'll take 5 minutes and we'll be back. Back to order. Our first report under item G1 is report on the Santa Barbara Unified School District Network Infrastructure. Oh, there's Mr.
Thank you. Good evening, Board President Sims Moten, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Maldonado. Tonight I'm very excited, because this is exciting to any CTO, to report on the current condition and status of our network infrastructure, and also some recommendations going forward. I like to categorize this in 2 different components. We have our external network and we have our internal network. Our external network, next slide please, are all of our services outside of our walls. So essentially all of our internet services and wide area network services with Cox Communication. In February, the board approved to upgrade these services starting in July. So we're really excited to see the growth of and expansion of our bandwidth headed into next school year. Next slide, please. Our internal network consists of all of the network equipment, cabling, Wi-Fi, and proper battery backups to sustain all of our technology that exists within our classroom and in our offices. This backbone supports all of our computers, our iPads, our labs, and several other mobile devices that we have connected throughout. Over the last 6 months, ETS has worked alongside of our facilities department as well as network professionals in the area to evaluate and assess all of these components within our schools. Next slide, please. Needless to say, we have some work to do. We have a lot of antiquated technology and a lot of upgrades that we need to perform. Our wireless access points are anywhere from 5 to upwards of 10 years old. Our cabinets, which house all of this network equipment, are anywhere from 10 plus years old, or sometimes don't even exist, which means we have to stack some of our network equipment on top of each other in a janitor's closet and deal with that. Our battery backups are extremely old as well, and most of the time don't last for more than a couple seconds. So they'll sustain a brownout, but they won't sustain a blackout of power. And in many cases, we don't have them in all the areas we need to, which is extremely important, especially since most of our end user devices are basically network based, such as our phones. And last but not least, our structured cabling, in other words, our fiber optic and our Ethernet, is upwards of 20 years old. Next slide, please. So given this assessment, we've established 3 main priorities that we want to focus on in upgrading. And first and foremost is our Wi-Fi. We want to start with outfitting every single classroom with updated Wi-Fi to allow for more concurrent connections as well as secure connections. And then we want to look at expanding our wireless reach in those hard-to-reach areas, such as our outdoor emergency areas, as well as any outdoor educational spaces. Next slide, please. Our second priority is our central data center. As we continue to decrease our footprint and move a lot of our services to the cloud, and we want to do that for reasons of security and saving labor hours and management, we still have a need to upgrade a lot of antiquated technology. Our data center is extremely important because it is really the central hub of all of our applications, all of our data, in which all of our district school sites come through. So that's our second priority. Next slide, please. And our last priority is to go through our school sites, add additional network cabinets, re-cable a lot of our antiquated systems. Just to note, that is not a Santa Barbara employee nestled in the cabling down there. And also include battery backups where necessary so that we can sustain a connection even if our power goes out. Next slide, please. So we've broken this up into 4 major projects: classroom wireless, our data center, an outdoor wireless expansion, and all of those internal connections that I just talked about. We have started to receive quotes and proposals on some of those costs for those first 2 items and are still working on evaluating what the costs would be for those bottom 2 projects. Next slide, please. Good thing is we have designated bond funds for exactly this. So using Measure J and Measure I funds, we believe we have enough of that funding to cover most, if not all, of these projects. And I can't think of a better way to use these funds because these are improvements that will last 10 plus years. Next slide, please. As far as the timeline, we are really eager to get started on our classroom wireless and our data center project, being that those will have a tremendous benefit and impact to our classrooms as far as reliability. The wireless project would last about 3 months, and our data center would take anywhere from 6 to 12 months. But overall, we're hoping to wrap up all of these infrastructure projects in under 2 years. Next slide, please. With that, it concludes my brief report on our network infrastructure. Like I said, we're very eager to get started on this, and the benefits of this will be more than we can even say right now, and just really excited to get the ball rolling. So with that said, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer at this time.
Any requests to speak on this item, Mr. Escobedo?
No.
Okay, board members, any questions or comments? Ms. Suresh?
Thank you so much for such a detailed report. I just had one quick question. Do you anticipate there being any interruption to existing network access or anything while we're improving and renovating what we have?
Great question. No, most of the bigger cutovers would happen after hours or on the weekend as to avoid that. or in a summertime or spring break, we would definitely work around classroom instruction.
Thank you so much.
I just do have one question. Seeing the schedule, you said it was 10 plus years since we've replaced it. Are we going to now have something more on schedule, more on time, ahead, updated? That'll be part of this.
Absolutely, yes. And not all of our equipment is that old, but just a lot of it, the majority of it is, because the process or the approach we've taken in the past has been just to kind of bandage it as we go along, but we want to do a more comprehensive upgrade. And then, like you said, establish a more frequent plan to keep those systems upgraded and spread them out.
Great. Thank you for a report here. No additional. Ms. Munoz? Ms. Munoz.
Yes, certainly appreciate the report and the just knowing that like the backups and just the cabinets and such, very much high time to do it, I'm sure. So very supportive. Thank you for the report. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next I want to do some agenda management just to make sure we're putting things together would make sense. So I want to move item G5 up before G2, putting those two items together. Ms. Edison, does that work for you? I know you were coming. It works for you? Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Good evening, Board, Superintendent. I am back doing our due diligence and our accountability report on racial incidents. I do want to report that in this work, given that the life that's happening across the nation, this work has a sense of urgency. As we know that Blackness is also often criminalized or seen as a threat. So I just want to commend us as a district to commit to this work of combating anti-Blackness, because it is an impact beyond Santa Barbara, but we have obligations to safeguard for our students. So I appreciate that I have been tasked to be a part of this work and will continue to be true to it. Next slide, please. So since last reporting, we had one incident that involved 2 students, but it was one incident, so I just want to be very clear and transparent about that. Next slide. The work continues. As if one incident shows up, it shows that we still have work to do, so we are not minimizing the one incident. Next slide, please. It was at the junior high level. Next slide. It was directed towards another student. It was not an indirect. It was actually said to another student. Next slide. It was a verbal incident, which means something was said or spoken. Next slide. And that concludes. We don't have updates this time. The work just continues. We're not highlighting or elevating any work with the Insight report happening tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for that and being willing to switch us up there to put
Absolutely.
this together and make sense. Any comments or questions on this? Because we know the Insight report is coming. Thank you, Ms. Edison.
All right, you're welcome.
Okay. Next, we'll move to our Insight report on the 2023 Anti-Blackness and Racial Climate Assessment and Analysis. Mr. Vince.
Good evening, President Sims-Moten, board members, Dr. Maldonado. As promised, we are delivering the report to you from Insight, and we also have Aurora Laura, who will be providing a report regarding the Anti-Blackness and Racial Climate Assessment. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you Aurora.
Thank you for having me, President Sims-Moten, board members, and Dr. Maldonado. Can we go to the next slide? So happy to be back now that we have concluded our report, and today I'm going to report out on the recommendations that we have for the district. But just as a quick review of the process that we've gone through this year, in the first phase, which happened in September and October, we had the district provide us with their data, and we looked at some of the policies and the equity initiatives already happening. In phase 2, we did stakeholder surveys. Those took place from October to December. And as I reported at a previous meeting, we had a total of 6,167 people fill out the survey. That was 585 district and school staff members, 888 families and caregivers, and 4,694 students. So we had great representation on the survey. So we analyzed the survey results. And then we did stakeholder focus groups from December to January. We did a total of 34, and we met with lots of students at the schools. We also met with teachers, support staff, district administration, families, community members, and some board members. So we got a lot of input from a variety of different perspectives about the challenges you're facing, ideas for how to fix it, and just what is actually kind of happening on the front lines. And then for the last couple of months, February to March, we spent time analyzing all that data. We went through a coding process to code all the comments that we got from focus groups, and our team did the data analysis and came out with a set of findings, which were presented at an earlier board meeting. And then after we kind of finalized those findings, then we developed a set of recommendations, which is what I am presenting tonight. Next slide. All right, so we broke these into two sets of recommendations. We've got the short-term recommendations and then the long-term recommendations. In terms of the short-term recommendations, the two things that we would encourage you all to do soon are, one, to develop role-specific protocols for responding to anti-Blackness and bias incidents in schools. We heard from a lot of people, including especially staff members, that there's not sure of the right way to respond in the moment. And so one of the things we heard is a lot of times they felt like they should just report it to an administrator or someone else. But the reality is we need to give them the tools to know how to do it in the moment. And then the second piece is create and implement some short-term professional development to equip all educational partners on how to recognize and respond to the racism and anti-Blackness in the moment, and then give them the skills to know what to do after you've addressed it and how to support the students or staff members who might have experienced it. In terms of long-term recommendations, we recommend that you concentrate on creating Black affirming educational spaces. And there's a really great book called The Anti-Blackness at School, Creating Affirming Educational Spaces for African American Students, that provides a lot of specific examples on how to do that. Some of the things that they recommend is that the districts work on just hiring more African American professionals, including teachers and administrators, so students are seeing more Black professionals at their schools. They partner with African American organizations and elders in the Black community. You commit to anti-racism efforts that move beyond diversity. You minimize punitive classroom management and school discipline practices that may contribute to Black students being disciplined at disproportional rates. That you connect curriculum to real world, learning to real world problems. You support meaningful engagement with families to help them understand how their students are doing, how to navigate the system, what to do if there's a problem, and how to address a complaint. And then just identify community organizations or local businesses that might offer resources and events for Black students and families, and just make sure that they're aware of events and things that are available. Next recommendation is that you provide racial affinity groups for Black students to help them figure out how to fight against racism, guide them through the complaint process so they understand how that works, identify barriers to success, and help them gain access to resources, things like networking, fellowship, mentorship, scholarships, counseling services, just help them understand what is available to them. We also recommend doing that for staff as well, so that they can have a support system to talk about some of the issues that they may be facing in the schools, how to handle that as a professional adult, and just provide support for each other. The next recommendation is that you identify, develop, and facilitate culturally responsive and relevant healing practices for groups of students who may have experienced racial trauma due to an incident that has happened. When we talked to lots of students during the focus group, people weren't always sure what supports were available if you've experienced that. And so we want to make sure that schools are all clear about what is available, what you can make available, and how to do that in a really culturally responsive way so that you're not re-traumatizing students in that process. The next recommendation, create professional learning in anti-Black racism and collaborate with other staff in facilitating learning in anti-racism and supporting Black students. We talked about having a short-term plan for helping staff understand what to do in the moment, but there needs to be kind of a longer-term, multi-year plan for how we're really going to go deep into that work. Some of the topics, or I'll go on to a different slide, but we recommend that you probably should think about partnering with a national organization who's done some of this work in districts around the country and can help the district build some professional development modules to help people understand how to build an anti-racist school and district culture, use practices that intentionally cultivate a positive racial identity in Black and African American students and caregivers while focusing on strengthening academic outcomes. Next recommendation is that you establish a process for monitoring improvement in the achievement of Black students. And we gave some examples of some current districts that are doing that work. And so we provided some resources so you can look up how they're doing that. But I think that's really important that we monitor how the students are doing, and if there are problems or barriers to success, that we're noticing those early so that we can intervene. Next recommendation, develop a clear set of consequences for individuals who engage in racist or anti-Black actions. The consequences should prioritize restorative practices and educating individuals and become gradually more punitive if the offenses reoccur. But the other important thing is to make sure everyone knows how to do that the right way and that all the schools are doing it, and so that there's just consistency in implementation. And finally, we'd recommend that you identify opportunities for student-led anti-Blackness and anti-racist programs on campus. I think it's really important to engage students as part of the solution and empower them to be able to have the tools to know how to speak up when they experience it at their school or see it happening. Okay, next slide. So as part of our audits, we look at 5 different domains, and so we did both the deep dive into the anti-Blackness work, and then we also just did our typical equity audit to come up with some additional recommendations. So these are the recommendations that came out of the other domains. Our domain around system structures and resources, we recommend that the district developed a district diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, and liberation team, or some type of oversight team that will ensure the implementation of equitable practices, that will help make sure there is a plan for how to implement these strategies, make sure that you're actually working on them, monitoring how they're working, and providing regular updates to the board and to the families about how the work is going. In terms of domain 3, which is equity in the educator workforce, we encourage that you just refine your strategies for recruitment, retention, and development of a staff pipeline for staff members of color. And so this means continuing to partner with organizations and universities to find more candidates to apply who are people of color, and to make sure that there is a way for people who are currently in the system to be able to understand how to get training and resources so that they can move up into roles. So this means if there's a classified staff member who wants to move into a certificated position, that there's kind of a pipeline for that. If you've got teachers who want to become administrators, that there's a pipeline. And so we think that's a way to help grow your own people in the system. In terms of domain 4, which is professional learning and personal growth, this is where we repeated this again, but we just recommend that you make sure, teachers are hungry, staff members are hungry for the professional development. And as you develop kind of your long-term plan, we recommend that the topics that you provide training on should include understanding systemic racial, cultural, and linguistic inequities, implicit biases, microaggressions, and identifying and responding to racism and anti-Blackness. And the last domain has to do with curriculum, instruction, and learning. We recommend that you just continue to expand the curriculum, instructional materials, and classroom practices to prioritize inclusion, equity, anti-racism. And that means looking at the curriculum, making sure that you're, examining for whether there might be some gaps or outdated images or, or ideas in the materials that you have. And that we make sure that the materials have faces and authors and people who represent the students in the district. and that we make sure that all the teachers are using those materials and doing their part to make sure that the curriculum represents all students. So that, next slide. So that concludes our set of recommendations, and what we've done in the report is given examples from other districts and kind of hyperlinks that can take you to different websites to show you what other places have done, so you have some examples to use as a baseline.
Thank you, Ms. Laura. Do we have some public item to speak, requests to speak on this?
Yes, we do. Thank you. We have two public commenters. We have Dr. Charlotte Moore, followed by Jeff Milam. Welcome, and I'll give you a 30-second warning. You'll have 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, Santa Barbara Unified School Board. My name is Dr. Charlotte Gollett Moore. The following statement is of my own opinion and does not represent any organization or leadership role I may serve here in Santa Barbara County. I agree with your report's recommendation that establishing a culture of anti-bias requires creating an anti-racist climate in every building, utilizing social and emotional support for active engagement with racial issues, and leveraging family and community partnerships to develop social trust. Data shows that structural racism concentrates power among privileged groups and devalues populations whose health needs to be equitably improved, in particular our Black youth, who are subjected to the ills of anti-Blackness racism. I beg you that this report is not a perpetuation of meaningless apathy, not empathy, but confirmation that we are intentionally supportive of a movement and not a moment. Respectfully, Dr. Moore. Again, these are the opinions of my own and does not represent any organization or positions I hold here in the county.
Thank you. Jeff Milam. Oh, if you could turn on the mic. There's a button at the bottom.
The technology just baffles me, sorry. Good evening, members of the board. It's nice to see you again. I come here both as a concerned citizen in Santa Barbara, but also, maybe more importantly, as the Dean of the Gevert School of Education at UCSB. And to tell you, I admire the work that you've done with this report and the work that will come as a result of this report. And I want to reiterate to you how willing and able we are as a school of education and as a university to support you as you move forward with this, drawing upon the expertise of our faculty, our staff, our students. You've already done that with the work you're doing with the healing space that's part of the Gevert School. We do that in a number of different ways, including the Peak Fellows, Community Fellows, where we work with you to grow our own teachers among first-gen low-income kids from Santa Barbara. My own work in the area of racial climate, I think, could be helpful to you as you think about moving forward with this important work. So just a reminder that we're here, we're willing to help, we're able to help, and we love the partnership that we have with you and the district. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes public comment.
Okay, thank you for the report. Board members, comments, questions? Any comments or questions? Ms. Suresh?
Thank you so much for the recommendations. I think it's really incredible that we got such a diverse group of people to give feedback. That shows that the recommendations really are like a holistic representation of what our district should do next. It's not just, what the students want, what the faculty wants. It's really like what the community wants. So I think that's really, really valuable. And specifically, I really appreciate how, you've addressed the different domains, because I think a lot of times we try to take an approach that's like, let's just address the long term, the root cause, or let's address the short term, the symptoms of the issue. And it's difficult because you see that if you don't address the full issue in its profundity, you're just going to keep having these, things flare up again and again. I'm looking forward to the work that the district is going to do following this. I know this is just the very, very, very beginning. And I'm excited that this is going to be something that holds us accountable. we have these recommendations. Now it's up to us to implement them. And it's also going to be the responsibility of us to answer the demands of the community as created with data that's, non-negotiable. So I'm really, really proud of the work that we've been doing, but I also want to, be cautious and remind us that we have a lot of work to do in the future, and we have to, stay humble and stay grounded and remember that at the forefront of all of this, we have to protect and take care of our Black families and our Black community members, because they are truly like the foundation of our community. So remembering that, we all play a role in this, and we all have to take care of ourselves and take care of each other. So thank you again.
Mr. Banning, did you? Yes.
Just want, I have some comments later, but I also have a question. I know we've been doing a lot of work on this. I know that this report didn't come out of the ether. It came from the vision of people before us that asked for it, and you've looked at things that are reporting that was available last year that may have been in years before and that. And one of my questions is, what are the things that we have been doing in the interim that are proving successful, and is there a way to look at the recommendations in the report and in some way meld with or evolve some of the things that are already going on without having to reinvent every portion of it?
So I would say actually the Combating Anti-Blackness work group would be one of those specific items. And as we're moving forward, we're going to actually be taking a look at that group and considering like how we would incorporate it in a new direction now that we have this report, right? As another item in particular, Ms. Laura brought up it was item 5, I believe, reviewing curriculum. And just to remind you that our ELA group under Ms. Alvarado's guidance was actually, and with the Combating Anti-Blackness work group, they came together and there was a rubric, and they were reviewing all of our ELA curriculum specifically, making sure that it did look like our kids and our students. So that's another item. Another thing that we incorporated, we have our specifically human resources. We did a professional development in terms of addressing anti-bias, anti-blackness, and modules similar as such, doing that work, as well as even the report itself that Kenya gives and provides. That was a starting point as we're moving forward into this. So those are some of the items that we're doing. We could tie this work into, I'll give you an example. Another one is that we're going to have a July Institute, Professional Learning Institute. So we take the opportunities that are ahead of us and tying in those opportunities in order to make sure we're moving forward with the items that, as you've seen in terms of the report.
Thank you.
It's finished. You're finished with the comments?
Sure. I read the first draft of the report. I reviewed the second one. It's an amazing amount of work. It's a critical subject. I don't like to read responses, but sometimes I forget them, so I am going to read something. I've previously stated that I'm proud to be part of the important work around racism and anti-blackness that is underway in the district. The acceptance of the final draft of this comprehensive report is another step, a big one, in the ongoing process of addressing the challenges outlined in the report. I'd also like to acknowledge the action of a previous board and current leaders of the district who saw the wisdom and urgency of approving this study. It reflects upon the good work that has brought us to this point, and it fuels the commitment of the Board of Trustees and the district leadership to continue with the work through the implementation and monitoring of short and long-term recommendations within this report. It's also an opportunity to pause and consider the depth of commitment that will be needed over time to make meaningful progress in this endeavor, and to remember that there will certainly be challenges and delays and less than perfect implementation. The multitude of tasks and initiatives being addressed at any given time in this and every other school district in the nation can be overwhelming. Each of them has constituencies and stakeholders who bring a sense of urgency to their desired outcomes. But it's impossible for every initiative to be the most important, the highest priority. And it is possible for separate initiatives to hold equivalent importance without competitive priorities. In a perfect world, knowing what's needed to progress as a district would be enough to achieve it. In reality, each of our initiatives are interdependent and will require careful planning and strategic use of time and resources. I hope as we take on the aspirational work ahead of us related to anti-Blackness and racism, we can be patient as we seek to implement the powerful recommendations of the report and integrate them fully and carefully with every other important initiative that we have as the school district.
Thank you, Mr. Banning. Mr. Escobedo?
Thank you. Mr. Vance, you mentioned a July Institute. Can you tell us more?
Yes, so that's a professional learning institute that we have with our employees. Other than that, it's being...
You might, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not involved with the planning specifically. That would be our educational services team. So
that's a neat idea. I just wanted to know a little bit more about it.
Okay.
I've asked you this last week, but you may not have an answer, or you may have a general answer. But what are the next steps immediately? Does it look like getting back with Cabinet and Dr. Maldonado to strategize kind of what the nearest term progress we can make between now and our next board meeting?
So as you know, we received the report at the end of last week, so Thursday and Friday specifically, to make sure that we got it out in time for the board meeting. Last Monday, that was yesterday. Oh, time flies. So yesterday morning, we distributed the report to the cabinet members, and then yesterday morning we actually carved out a substantial proportion of our time in the cabinet meeting to go through the recommendations specifically, because we had already reviewed the executive summary, and to actually come up with ideas specifically which had to do with the short-term and long-term process of how we would like to envision how we roll out in terms of what's in the recommendations. And so what are common themes that are occurring within the recommendations? So that's what we ended up doing yesterday. I think the question that you will ask is, so now what with this? Number one in particular, that after yesterday's experience, what it's really clear is how we're going to communicate this report out to our colleagues, right? Our staff, our students, our families, the community. So that's going to be one of the steps that we're going to be taking right away. The various steps to communicate in a way that's going to make it accessible, right? The other thing is taking a look at developing a roadmap in particular, and we need to do that right away. A roadmap that would actually taking in a small group of our district leaders, so we could include some principals, maybe a few teachers, cabinet, but actually a small group to really go through this, create action steps within this roadmap. So that would include like a timeline. It would include specifically like connecting it with our funding source, which includes the LCAP. So as you will remember, LCAP, the goal 3 is specifically aligned to this. So it will not only just be a plan, or these will not only be action steps, but these are things that we are investing in, that we find of high value, right? And then we tie it to that funding line. The other part I would say in particular is that then we take what we create in this roadmap and then share that with our community and start to fine tune it as we continue to move forward. Some of the immediate things we can address could actually be specifically policy. We received a copy of policy from Portland, Oregon, from the school district that really made it clear they've already set out steps in terms how to address, anti-blackness language or hate language. Another thing, a long-term thing that was a common theme that we're noticing is that creating some sort of advisory committee. I tend not to use the word committee too much because people hear committee and then they think that not a lot's going on. But I think an advisory or actually an oversight committee, because one of the crucial things that's necessary that I've learned from this experience with the RFP is that once we developed the RFP, the request for proposal, we got insight on board and starting the process that we want to continue this work and all of the various entities that were making sure that this was being completed. And we need to do this not only for next year, the following year, and the following year, so that we could start making sure it's systemic in our community. So.
Thank you for that. That was encouraging. And I'll just go into some of my comments if that's okay. I just wanted to thank everyone involved in this. Insight, thank you for being here and your team. And I want to thank the community for their participation in this process. That was huge. I think anyone who has been a part of any sort of survey or outreach effort, the amount of participation we had in this particular effort was spectacular. And I want to acknowledge that both from our students, parents, family members, community members, our staff, the cabinet, Dr. Maldonado. There's just so much and so many people that contributed to this. I share the feeling that I am very proud to be a part of this effort. And I also want to commend the district leadership and the previous board for setting us on this path to begin with. It was a big decision and the right decision. In the higher education space, different folks have different philosophies about professional development, and we work with a lot of young people, and so we talk a lot about professional development. And I have a colleague who we talk a lot about critical conversations, and critical conversations are typically the ones that are the most uncomfortable to have at the beginning. And we and this board and the previous board and this district leadership set us on the path to have these really critical conversations. And the time for those conversations will continue. But now we have this document with this information, both with current conditions at our schools. And yes, we knew that this was happening, but this gives us a much more precise amount of information on where we need to focus and some of the issues that we need to address. It's also a very dense document, and it's going to take some time to review. And so I appreciate your answer about now what are the next steps. I do appreciate that because we do need some time to digest this. And I want to recognize that and give the team the flexibility and the time to do that. But I also want to impress on you the urgency, right? And I think you spoke about this, is that yes, we need some time to draw out that roadmap, but there needs to be that urgency. One of the biggest fears that I have is that we have in this document short-term recommendations and long-term recommendations, and there is the positive feedback that comes from those short-term recommendations, and we feel like we're making really good progress, but then too often you see that for the long-term solutions, because it's not that instant gratification, that sometimes we lose that urgency. And so I think absolutely the idea of having, I love the term oversight committee or oversight body, where there is some accountability to make sure that we are following that roadmap. I think I have some suggestions, but I want to go through each of the different domains and talk about what I highlight and what I was able to pick out as kind of my top priorities, or just recommendations that I wanted to provide feedback on, if that's okay. So in the 1.1 recommendations, I thought, I think in your roadmap, probably, and it's under that short-term area, but I think the first steps do need to be creating that cross-functional team. And this is not my idea. This actually comes from Mr. Vance, of talking about the need to have an implementer. I think we've all worked on group projects or committees or been a part of work efforts where maybe sometimes you lacked that implementer that could was strategic in their thinking and talking about how we get from the beginning to actual implementation, and can provide the insight on considerations for the implementation so that we can plan for as many considerations as possible. It speaks to the fact that what we heard tonight is that the idea of having principals, teachers, maybe some family members and community members, but in my opinion, in saying all that, is it needs to be focused and purpose-driven. And I think having that implementer, as you had mentioned, Mr. Vance, and other conversations we had about this, is really, really important. And so I wanted to highlight that. Other things in 1.1 is the, give me 1 second, I want to make sure I get this right. It is, develop a short-term professional development plan to equip all educational partners with tools for recognizing racism and responding to racism and anti-blackness in the moment, and how to report the incident for additional follow-up. What I read in this report is we have folks that want to act and they want to do it the right way, but their feeling is that they do not have the resources or the know-how. And with that, I think it's good to recognize this, is that there's also a fear of making a mistake. And one of the things that was really encouraging, I think this was last month when we had Principal Simmons and Principal Woodward, and they were talking about these, someone's going to have to remind me, but they're basically support on thought partnership. Thank you. Thought partnership to help work out how to respond to these issues. And that is so, so important. And you see it in other training programs, of the ability to have a safe space to reflect on a situation and build the capacity to better respond in the future and highlight what went really well and what could happen to improve the situation in the future. I really hope that we can get those two off the ground first, so we can address, I think, some really immediate needs. And I think those maybe have, none of this work is easy, but I think those, as highlighted in the report, can be some of the first two things that we tackle. The other piece that I think goes along with that is there are going to be folks, unfortunately, that are not on board with this work. And with that, I think we need to, or there are going to be folks that don't meet the expectations that we are setting for our school district. And so it is really important to develop a clear set of standards. And I really like the language from the report that says developing, and this is under their long-term recommendations, but I would actually challenge us to not put this at the tail end of our roadmap, but move this as close as possible as we can. to develop a clear set of consequences for individuals who engage in racist or anti-black actions. And for me, this is the really important part, is this next sentence. The consequences should prioritize restorative practices and educating individuals and become gradually more punitive if offenses reoccur. I think that is absolutely really important, because I think this also contributes quite a bit to the culture, to building the long-term culture that we need, because accountability is really important. And it doesn't always look like extremely punitive responses. It can actually be a really good thing, and it's a learning opportunity or a growth opportunity for many of us. And the last one from 1.1, there is creating Black affirming educational spaces, and I wanted to highlight this one because last week we heard from the folks from Healing Spaces to not just focus on when things go wrong, but to create opportunities for Black joy. And I think we can all get caught in the spiral of focusing on when things are going bad and the harms that happen, but I think we also need these really positive experiences for our students, our staff. So that's 1.1. I promise I'll go as fast as I can for the rest. But 2.1, I think you're right on, Mr. Banning, in talking about highlighting what we have done well or things that we are currently doing that can be adapted. I see this District Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, Justice, and Liberation team as something homologous to the Combating Anti-Blackness Work Group. And I think that we can evolve it to always be better, but I think that is one positive note that I wanted to highlight about what we're doing now. 3.1 talks about, give me a second, it talks about refine the talent management strategies for the district, and it goes on a little bit more to bless you. This is a big one for me, and I want to talk about the fact that we need to create as many pathways to employment with our school district as possible to meet the folks that we really need to accomplish these goals in our school district, and we need everyone. But the best way to do that is it looks exactly like our partnership with Healing Spaces. It's partnering with higher education institutions like UCSB, CSU Channel Islands, SBCC, and creating programs where they can get practical experience and create those connections with our school district and offer them opportunities to be employed here. It's so important. I can't tell you how often students on campus are looking for practical experience, and practical paid experience is really important. And so I want to encourage us to figure out how we can do that, how we can create these partnerships. And it was fantastic to hear today that we have those partners out there. And I want to encourage us to start those conversations. And I know that they already have begun, and we have the contract from last week. I'd like us to expand it a little bit to some other higher education institutions. And also, it was noted in here, providing opportunities for classified staff to become certificated. I think that is also something that we need to explore in our school district. I'll end from the recommendations with this. It's 4.1. It's the first bullet point, partnering with an external organization, and it's on page 49, that has a national perspective and brings demonstrated experience from districts across the country in cultivating positive racial identities to disrupt the narrative of white supremacy by focusing on the assets, beauty, and accomplishments of people of color. And I think this is really important, to partner with folks that have a national perspective. I think in Santa Barbara, sometimes we like to think that, and we are very special, I'll acknowledge, but we like to think that our issues are unique to us, and if I've learned anything in some of the other issue areas I've worked on, the truth is solutions are out there in other communities, in other school districts, and we should leverage that experience, both what worked well and what didn't, and not silo ourselves from some of those folks that can help us find the solutions or implement them better. Okay, I promise, I'm almost done. So a couple of suggestions beyond the recommendations that are in here is in thinking about meetings coming up and the now what conversation, I would like, and I think that the racial incidents report needs to evolve. I think it served a really good purpose of creating awareness, highlighting incidents that are going on, but we now have a document with recommendations, and I think that we need to start focusing on implementation. And what that report looks like, I'm not sure, but I would love for it to evolve into more of a progress report on these recommendations and the implementation of such. I think this is also what the community wants. I think they want to know what is happening, and that comes with that accountability piece. Some other feedback is that, as we talk a lot about, we are an MTSS district. So with that, I am going to be interested in hearing about what metrics are we going to use and set to measure our progress. And I know that doesn't happen overnight, but I'm hopeful that we can come up with that in the near future. And lastly, I'm just going to say that, again, I'm really proud of this work. I'm really excited for what's to come. It's not lost on me that this is a challenge, and a challenge that we willingly and enthusiastically accept. I'm also, it's a challenge for our site leadership too, not just the folks in this room. And I am going to be paying particular attention to which of our site leaders embrace this wholeheartedly, and those that don't. And I'm hoping that we don't have any of those folks and everybody embraces it wholeheartedly. But we're building a culture, and it takes everyone, and so that's the expectation. And I'm just really thankful for all of the work that Insight has done, Mr. Vince, you, the whole cabinet, and Dr. Maldonado. So with that, those are my comments. Thank you so much, and with appreciation.
Thank you, Mr. Escobedo. Ms. Munoz?
Yes, thank you so much for the report and all the guidance that you've given us. I've liked being able to have the links as to how this is done in other places, and as you said, like a lot of information for us, for all of us to look at. I definitely want to see a continued partnership as much with, UCSB, with other community partners, with groups that are also working on issues of racism in our community and beyond. I would like to see about having the curriculum, be at all grades levels, from the youngest students that we have throughout our grade levels, elementary, junior high, and high school. Certainly want to see us support students and staff of color, and in providing them support and having a consistent protocol, which I know is easy to say, but a lot of work to do, and more to come on that, I'm sure, from our cabinet and our staff, and to continue having that ongoing dialogue regarding racism, regarding anti-Blackness, including our students in the conversation. The students are the ones that are experiencing this and can say, honestly, regarding any improvements that they see, any deficiencies, and for them to have an opportunity for leadership in our district. They're, our leaders they're our future. And so, definitely want to see it. Like I said, I think it's wonderful to have it addressed in terms of the curriculum and the recommendations, the short term and the long term. I'm sure this is like a good starting place. And I agree, the report that we receive in terms of the racial incidences, what can we do better as a district? Can we have community, involvement? Can we have forums, the education and trainings for that to be something that's in place and that will continue? So thank you very much, and this is just a starting place, and proud to be part of this district. And thank you so much.
Okay. Dr. Maldonado.
Thank you. I'll be brief. Thank you so much, Laura, for being here. I just want to say when I first started in Santa Barbara Unified, I was interviewed by students. That was the first interview I granted with high school students, and some of the questions they asked about was some of the things that I was thinking about as a superintendent. And something that I've carried with me for many years as a school leader, a district leader, is the idea that the culture and climate of the district really has a lot to do with our outcomes. And to think that only curriculum fixes it, or an assessment, or hiring certain people or not having certain people is really not all of the formula. So I really appreciate the recommendations that really speak to how do we create a culture and climate that values every single one of our children. And there was a story of the canary in the coal mine. You send the canary to the coal mine. Do you kill the canary if the coal mine is not a good environment? You don't. You change the environment to make it safe for everyone. At a time in our country when many of our students, many of our Black young people do not feel safe, like in the recent case of Ralph Yarl in Kansas City for knocking on the wrong door, it's not acceptable. And as far as I'm concerned, none of our children should ever feel that way in Santa Barbara Unified. So I just want to reiterate my commitment, as long as I'm superintendent, to ensure that this work is done well, with the sense of urgency and with the deep, thoughtful planning as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, board members, for your comments, and Dr. Maldonado. Thank you for the presentation today. I know for insight, for coming forth and being a part of this, and cabinet, and Dr. Vince. I'm calling you doctor, but Mr. Vince. You probably feel like one after one, right? You've done your research. Just in terms of, I was thinking back when the incident first broke here in Santa Barbara Unified, and the pain that we heard through the public comments. It stirred, movement in terms of we had to do something, right? Because we could no longer sit by and say, yeah, we're going to work on it. Yes, we're going to do that. And perhaps there were some things done. But often happens is that we write up something and it gathers dust. Because at that moment, I think Dr. Charlotte Moore said, this is a movement. And oftentimes we are dealing with racism as a moment, because the folks who have maybe been harmed, they seemingly are okay. And sometimes being placated by, yes, we're going to look at that in terms of those pieces. And so I think that it's important for us to really look at this opportunity. Because I'll sit here on this board. I mean, this board wasn't all that agreement to start this culture assessment. We weren't. It took some time. There was hesitancy. That's what it's been like in this community. There's hesitancy. Until our children cry out, until parents who continue, the community have continued to do with this, cry out about and pressure. No one should have to pressure you to do an assessment of your culture when you see it right in front of you. So I'll just be open and honest about that. We got pushed to do it. So with that being said, and I understand the hesitancy, I understand that it takes the courage, I understand how scary it can be. but think about how scary it is, not just making a decision to do something, but not making a decision, the impact on the people what's happening. That's scary when you feel that you can't go to a wrong address just because of how you look. So I think we have the opportunity here, and I do think it has to do with leadership. It has to do with timing. It has to do with commitment. And so I think we have the opportunity to tell a different story, as I said last week. What do we want our children to tell the story about what's happening when they tell the story to their children? Having come through this community, having come through this district, what story do we want them to tell them? I hope that they're able to say that I was seen and that I matter. Not that I mattered, but I matter. You matter. You know that when you're part of this district. We want people on the waiting list clamoring to get in here. We want people to come in and be employed by this district because you're going to be seen. You're going to be in a district where everybody's matter. And we are each other's sister and brother keeper. Oh, yes, we are. And sometimes that's the hardest thing to do. So as I was sitting in, and I just really appreciate all the comments from the board and the commitment and this document that we have in front of us as a start to the pathway, it reminds me of a book by Bell Hooks, Teaching to Transgress, because that was a time of segregation. And in the black community, you had the black schools, you knew where you needed to go. Everybody was on board on their goal where they needed to go. Everybody understood where they needed to go to survive. So I would offer to read that book as we start to go through these things. Everybody's got to know the direction we're going. Everybody's not going to get on board at first, but at least they know. Because some things we know, we don't necessarily like them, but we know. And that's a part of this, that we'll continue to make sure that we know, we continue to create our culture that we want to be, again, telling the story differently and the experience be different than our children have had. And I want to see it in a way that they start to tell a different story, not once they leave, but while they're still here. Because if we're working on these recommendations, they can start to tell a different story now as a part of short-term, long-term. Because I would be interested to say, how are you feeling right now? How do we incorporate that in terms of, are we moving in the right direction? Do you feel that you are seen, that you matter, that you're valued? Are you beginning to feel safe? Are you beginning to feel that it's okay to be black, be brown? Whatever color are you feeling that? That's an important question that we need to answer. We need to answer it often, and how we incorporate it, in our already existing opportunities. And I do think we have some existing opportunities because we started to do some work. And we got to realize this has been years, and we got to turn it around. We've got to turn it around. But the fact that we've committed to start turning it around. And I just want to read something. I think it's by W.H. Murray. And he says, the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves. Until we committed at this last board that we needed to have this, nothing was moving. It was the same old thing, different day. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise occur. So it means we've got to take that first step and be committed for that first step. Unforeseen incidents, meetings, and material assistance which no man, woman have dreamed would have come his way. It's making that commitment. And I'm proud to be part of this leadership, not patting ourselves on the back, but making that first step, being that model. And Santa Barbara is a different place, different space. I know that I had to tell my son 25 miles down the way is different from where you are in Santa Barbara. So we really need to make sure that we're encouraging all of our students to understand who they are in here, how different you look in this community. We talk about diversity. We don't honor diversity. We talk about that. So you've addressed a lot of those things, in the report. And also, we talk about the pages on this report should be worn out. Because we're turning them, we're looking at them, we're doing it, we're being mindful. These are suggestions, we're putting it in. And I do think that we are starting to have existing things already in place. I don't think we have to do new things. I know we have to engage. Where are they? Where's a logical place to put some of the changes that are being recommended in here? Where are we already starting to look at that? So not creating extra work, but expanding the work perhaps where it has not been being thoughtful of where it is. And then the last thing I would just say, I was just thinking about this to Mr. Milam. Thank you. It made me think about in 1968, on October 14th, 1968, the members of the Black Student Union organized to give voice to campus injustice. They demanded that UCSB take action to support the Black students on campus and implement Black Study Department, educating students and the faculty alike about the complexities of the Black experience. That's 1968. We're here in 2023, trying to get the same thing going on. So when we say that we want to partner with UCSB, we have a resource right here in this community that experienced this thing. So I want to see that community be out. I don't see a lot of, the community, particularly the African American community, seeing that in the community. The community has to help us with this issue, because we can be here, it's like being in a cocoon, but once you go out, if you don't have that same thing to be able to nurture it, it's kind of defeating itself, right? So I say that says something to me in 1968, and I think it's North Hall now. So I would have us go out, and are there anybody still on that campus that experienced that? I would love to hear them come and talk about that. That's another experience. We don't have to go online. They're online. We have it right here in this community that we have to refer to. I think that's a good opportunity, again, that develops the relationship that we need to do. So I too want to make sure how do we follow up, and how do we make sure that we're reporting out in the various areas that you have recommended that we look at. I also want to thank those who participated in this process. Thank you who led it. Thank you for the board new members coming on and understanding where we are, and making no bones about the hesitancy to start this in the first place. But I'm glad we're here. We're making that commitment. So with that commitment, our students, our faculty, our district need to know that there's no hesitancy in us doing this work. And we're going to take that first step. And what story do we want to tell? What story do we want to tell? I would love to see art in our VADA class. We just did a VADA class. We have Mad Academy. Tell us through the things that you have the opportunity to do, hearing from our students. Tell us that story. When we have all our meetings, what are you doing? Ask that question. Don't start the meeting until you get a question, something about that, to see how people are feeling and doing that, so that our students know that they are seen, they are valued, they matter. And everybody know where we're trying to go. That's another important piece. And that was part of the, as I said, the bell hooks teaching to transgress. And so I think one of our a keynote speaker was saying, the things we say to ourselves, that's the story we're telling. So what do we want to say to ourselves, and what do we want to say to our students, so that we can tell a better story? So I think we're already starting to tell that better story, but we certainly know that we need to make some adjustments, and the chapters will be long. I think we need to start a story, we need to start a book. I really think we need to start a book, because this is some hard work. As in 1968, that changed to North Hall to do that. And that's an example that I think that we can be here in 2023. Let's start to document that book. Not putting anything on anybody's plate, but I'm just saying, maybe there's some people at UCSB can help us start with a book. Maybe there's someone out of the community to write that book, to detail it down, so that it's some good history, so that when we're looking at our history books, it's real history that's right here that was starting in Santa Barbara County. So thank you again thank you for standing. Thank you. So you're standing tall with us, right? So thank you for being here, and thank you for Insight for your work, and I know that we'll continue to do this work. Mr. Vance. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
President Sims-Moten, we have a person who wants to give comment. If she can be called on, Gloria Soto?
Yes, and then I'll close public comment on this so we can get on with the other business. Ms. Soto, are you online? Is she online?
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Great. Good evening, school board members. My name is Gloria Soto, and I'm the Executive Director with Future Leaders of America. I want to start by showing my gratitude to you and the district for its efforts in addressing many of the anti-Black and racial incidences that have occurred at the district. We understand that these issues harm the learning environment for students of color, and they need to be addressed in a carefully thought out manner. The recommendations provided by the researchers at Insight highlight many of the areas of concern that our youth have brought up this year, including ensuring that we hire more culturally proficient educators and that the material being taught at school is reflective of the student population. The addition of cultural sensitivity training will also help bridge the gap between educators and students of color. The implementation of affinity groups where educators and youth can work together to ensure the placement of equitable practices in the district is also something that we look forward to seeing come to fruition. When you address racism, you address issues that affect all students. We are in support of the recommendations made by Insight, and we stand in solidarity with the Black student peers at SBUSD. We also ask that you follow the recommendation of the report by prioritizing restorative justice practices for individuals and consider all student experiences when you identify these solutions. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Now we'll move to G3, our first reading of our 2023.
All right,
Is that
it's
you,
me
Mr.
again.
Okay.
Yes. All right, so this is the first reading of our uniform complaint process. And actually, this is the document itself is directly, we received the template from CDE. This is actually part of the federal program monitoring process. So we're bringing to you just the first reading. For the most part, we've received guidance from the Department of Ed, and they just say, do not change anything other than putting the school district's name, contact information, and so on. And that's how you approach this document in particular. But I do want to point out that Miss Edison, you know that she's been really taking on the role in her team in terms of addressing our uniform complaint procedures, as we have discussed in previous meetings, and it ties directly to the conversation that we just had. So it all connects as one. So for next board meeting, we'll bring to you the second reading, and we would like to recommend, because we would like to get this approved by the next board meeting, excuse me. So we would like to have it approved by the next board meeting. We've received guidance from legal, which means that you can actually take the second reading, and you, as a school board, you could recommend to vote and approve after the second reading. And so that's what we'll be bringing at the next board meeting.
Okay.
And that's my report.
Okay. Board members, any questions or comments? I'll have my comment after the second one. So,
okay,
go ahead.
All right. So the second one is the Williams complaint process. Again, it's the same in terms of we received the template from California Department of Education. Same thing. The only difference is the Williams complaint really specifically addresses, as you may remember, in the fall, we have to get it approved by the board. What we do is we go through with the county office, and they go and make sure that our instructional materials, our students have all the instructional materials that they need. So they check that, as well as they check the facilities. So, and again, this is very similar to the other UCP document. So, and we'll be doing the same process at the next board meeting.
Okay. Don't see any public comment to speak on either one. Has any board comments on this? Okay. I just have a quick question. So I'm looking at the word complaint. So in order to think about, do we have enough staff dedicated to be able to support, for instance, the UCP policies? You know, because I know Ms. Edison pretty much has kind of been doing herself, and I know we're rearranging and looking at different things. So do we have the support we need?
I think that we currently do, but we definitely need to train more people to help that department, both for staff and student complaints. And then another consideration that I've been thinking about bringing to the board is potentially also hiring, having a contract with someone that could conduct the investigations if we need to, if they rise to that level.
Okay. Because I was thinking as one of the doctor, you're just going to be doctor, just go with it tonight. So I'm just thinking, we talked about an implementer. So I'm just thinking, can we combine some different things that we need an implementer of this? And obviously some of the complaints would come out of that. So can we think about maybe looking at those parts as an implementer of the recommendations here? Could that also be helping and extending the staff to also do this as well? So as you think about that going forward. So that's just a thought. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, we moved G5 up, so we have come to the end of the day of our agenda. Board members, yes. So you see coming events, which are through our elementary school spring open houses, and also April 23. There's also others coming in May 23, and Mr. Banning has already talked about that awesome spreadsheet that tells us exactly where we are and where we need to be. So I appreciate that. So I think that is, go ahead.
I do want to double down on Kavia's comment that it is National Bilingual Multilingual Advocacy Month, so we'll be pushing out some information about that and ask our illustrious Dr. Sekeli to do some social media posts. I intended to bring a resolution, but time ran out for me. And the other thing I'm going to just say, if you'll take a moment to also, I won't be here next week with you because I'll be traveling with you to the DC trip, but next Wednesday is Administrative Assistants Day, and we have two amazing administrative assistants, Sandra Trujillo and Adriana Morales. So we're going to give you an early clap, but we'll definitely do a celebration upon our return, and I just want to encourage everyone to thank their administrative assistants. I know I certainly benefit from them being my bosses, and thank them profusely for working with us. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And then you see on your future agenda items, I just wanted to say on the joint meeting with Santa Barbara City, we just trying to figure out how to best meet with them. And so I'm proposing that for this year, we won't meet by the end of June, but we look at maybe we can get a standing date with meeting with these joint governing bodies so that we already know we're not always searching for a new one each year. So that it relieves some of their searching, trying to find a date that's been very difficult. So if we can get through the end of this year and we start to look at a date that we'll have a standing date with the entities, City College, City of Goleta, and Santa Barbara City Council as well. We can get a standing date. Okay. With that, we want to conclude regular session. Thank you all for this evening. And board members, I need 5 minutes of your time in closed session, and then otherwise we're ready to go. So that concludes our meeting. Thank you.